Hey everyone, my name's Shanice and welcome back to my channel. In my very last video, I had alluded to a special project that I'm working on. In this video, I will finally divulge what it is that I'm embarking upon. By the title of this video, I'm sure you've figured it out already. Basically, starting this year, I am embarking upon what I foresee to be a lifelong project of reading across Latin America. I myself am Dominican. I am a daughter of immigrants. My entire family is from the Dominican Republic, and I just feel like there's a big lack in my knowledge of general Latin American literature, Caribbean literature, and I want to fill that void and address that big lack in my own reading trends and in my reading life so far. I just want to do better and learn about myself a little bit more beyond, what I know from my family. So, yeah, there's so much rich literature and culture to be found across Latin America, not just in the DR, but in all the countries that make up Latin America. And yeah, I'm just super, super excited to have started this project. But yeah, I wanted to share this project with you. Maybe some of you want to join in and pick your own books to make your own Latin American TBR. Now, I will say that I am sort of killing two birds with one stone with this project. For me, it doesn't have to be for you if you also choose to join along in this TBR. But in addition to simply choosing books by Latin American authors that I'm going to read throughout the years, I also am going to prioritize reading them in their original language. Now, as of today, I only really know how to speak Spanish within the languages spoken across Latin America. Portuguese would be a bit after that, but I guess at this point I'm not totally confident enough to sit down and read the Brazilian books that interest me because I think the vocabulary would be a little bit too challenging at the moment, but I see that changing throughout the years. But my TBR right now is primarily Spanish language based, but that is not to say that in the future, I will try to incorporate other languages as my own skills improve. If any of you guys have literally any recommendations for maybe simple, easy, beginner Brazilian Portuguese books, classic books that you want me to read or that you can recommend, please let me know. Comment down below. I love the country of Brazil. I sort of taught myself very basic Brazilian Portuguese 6 years ago and then got a little lazy, and yeah, but I would love to learn more via fiction if I can. So any recommendations are gladly welcome. So please comment down below with any of those, and not just for Portuguese, for literally any other language spoken across Latin America. I'm really curious to see what you guys can recommend and have to say about maybe some of your own country's literatures. Something else that's very, very important as to why I wanted to embark on this project is that I have found over the years that the writers and the literatures that are allowed to represent Latin America tend to be rather homogenous. I see people who want to read diversely, who don't really read Latin American literature, sort of gravitating towards the same 5 people. And not to say that those very famous male, usually light-skinned, usually also very Eurocentric writers are not to be read. They're hugely popular and hugely significant to Latin American literature as a whole, but there are a plethora of other ethnicities and races within Latin America that never get spoken of, that never get a chance to really be representative of Latin America. So I want to have this project to make my own canon of Latin American literature in a way, and to acknowledge modern writers, women writers, people who speak various languages, the kind of Latin America that I know exists that I wish could be equally represented across the board. So yeah, these are the sort of things that I'm going to be prioritizing for my own TBRs this year and in the future. I think it's really important to always question and confront the trends in your own reading on a personal level, but also on a macro societal level. Why are we only acknowledging these certain types of writers and not others? There's a lot to confront there. And obviously in 1 year I'm not going to be able to represent every single type of person or identity, but I think I'm gradually moving in the right direction. I think the 2022 TBR is quite diverse, and not just in ethnicity or race, but also in genre, in nationality, in form, in style. And one very important thing and final thing that I want to say before I just do a quick rundown of my TBR is that the term Latin American or Latin America is very contentious. There is no real one unified definition or agreed upon definition for who can identify as Latin American. It's quite complicated, and so for the sake of organization, I'm just going to go by the following definition of Latin America / Latin American. So I'm going to use the Wikipedia definition, which obviously is not the most academic of sources, but I think it works, and I think it's generally what people understand that term to mean. So I am using the definition as follows. Latin America is the portion of the Americas in which most of the countries speak Romance languages, including Spanish, French, Portuguese, and variations of those languages. But I will also include, because this is not included in the official definition, but I would also include to those languages indigenous and Mesoamerican languages, and maybe Creole languages too. So that is my definition. Also, I will read the 20 countries and 14 dependent states that are, I guess, unofficially known as Latin America. Again, this is very contentious, so I know many people would disagree with this, but I'm just using this for my own sake, and it also makes sense to me. So, the official countries and dependent territories are Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, República Dominicana, Ecuador, El Salvador, French Guiana, Guadeloupe, Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras, Martinique, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Puerto Rico, Saint Barthélemy, Saint Martin, Uruguay, and Venezuela. And those are all of the countries and territories that I will be considering for this project. So many different cultures and peoples to learn from. So yeah, I'm very excited, and I hope you will also join me in this very exciting endeavor. I'm super thrilled. I love reading, and therefore I love reading books from anywhere, because I love to just read about other experiences that aren't exactly like mine. Let's get to this TBR once and for all. I'm very, very, very excited. Have I said that yet? I'm very excited. So my plan is to read one book per month. There are 2 exceptions to this, where I'm going to take 2 months to read those 2 books. So January, what did I pick for January? I picked Antes que llegue la luz by Mayra Santos Febres, and she is a writer from Puerto Rico. This is a work of nonfiction / memoir / autobiography that was published last year, 2021. And I came across Santos Febres last year in a post-colonial literature class, and I fell in love with her writing. I read Our Lady of the Night, the English translation, and yeah, her writing style is very energetic and musical, and you can really see her poetic origins come through in her prose. And I really love that novel, and like I said, her writing style. So I knew I wanted to pick up whatever else she had written. And this title, which I would translate roughly to Before the Light Arrives, although like the light is mainly referring to like electricity coming back. This follows the writer speaking as herself when she was living in Puerto Rico in 2017, and it talks about her experiences being there first for Hurricane Irma, and then 2 weeks later for the very devastating Hurricane Maria. So she talks about her art, her writing, motherhood, government inaction and oversight, her privilege as a survivor, the injustices for which sections of Puerto Rican society got more help than others, and maybe the social and racial underlying prejudices that were, beneath those decisions. It's very in-depth, very personal, and beautifully written. So yeah, that was my January pick. And then my February pick was a poetry collection called Rotundamente Negra y Otros Cuentos by Shirley Campbell Barr. And she is a Costa Rican writer. The title roughly translates to like absolutely black, definitely black. The title poem, but really the entire collection, is paying homage to the writer's Afro-descendancy, her pride and her blackness, how her community, not just in Costa Rica but across Latin America, has sort of been marginalized and forgotten about and ignored. I want to read this quote that I found. It's by Dorothy E. Mosby, and it was in the 2016 edition of Meridians, which is an academic journal. And so I found this online, and I think I'm just going to put this down. I think Dorothy Mosby just describes it perfectly and does it more justice than I would in describing the book. So, to quote her, she says, "In a region where black women live doubly invisible lives amongst the most marginalized of the hemisphere, the poem," again the titular poem, but also I would say the entire collection, the poem is both a self-affirmation and a battle cry. It politicizes as it circulates through the Americas with its message of racial identification and pride that defies the homogenizing tendencies of mestizaje and blanqueamiento. So yeah, it's a very, very powerful poetry collection, and unfortunately it's not available in any other language but Spanish, so if you speak Spanish, I hope you enjoy. And also the previous book that I mentioned, I don't think is available in any other language but Spanish, so apologies for the lack of translations, but I guess that's also speaking to why there should be more translations of these authors and not just other sections of Latin American writing. Maybe it will draw more attention to why it matters to make these types of writing more available to readers worldwide. Okay, the next pick for March is called El Viejo, El Asesino y Yo y Otros Cuentos by Ana Lucia Portela. And this is a Cuban writer. The title in English would be The Old Man, the Murderer, and I and Other Stories. So obviously this is a short story collection. It's written by a very prominent and contemporary Cuban writer. The author was voted in 2007 as one of the most important 39 Latin American writers under 39, and the titular story has won awards. Generally, this short story collection includes 9 short stories and 1 testimonial essay at the end. It also includes an introduction that goes through the history of the short story in Cuba since 1959, and really emphasizes the work of the short story in the 1990s in the country. This is filled with cultural references, footnotes. It's very self-referential. There's a story that I don't think anybody's going to forget about cockroaches. So yeah, it's a very memorable and impactful collection, and I hope if you pick this up, you enjoy it as well. The next selection is a book that I have just started reading, and it's my April/May read. It's by Jose Watanabe, and it's called El Desierto Nunca Se Acaba. Jose Watanabe is a Peruvian writer of mixed Japanese and Andean descent. He is huge in Peruvian literature, especially in the world of Peruvian poetry. Core to his work is an homage to his mixed heritage. He really speaks to both in a very beautiful way. I thankfully came across Jose Watanabe as a poet from reading the essay The World Doesn't Stop for Derek Walcott, or An Exchange Between Co-Editors by Gerald and Lawrence-Minh Davis. And that was part of the little magazine in Contemporary America. I had read this for a class last year as well, and in this essay these two editors talk about how they understand Asian American identity, and this line is extremely important, and I think one that all of us should consider when we mention these kinds of terminology. So, they say, "We, however, also have to remember that Asian American literature can also be written in languages other than English. For starters, the US is not the only American country. Canada and Latin American countries each have a robust Asian American tradition and scene with writers of its own. The scarcity of these authors, even within Asian American studies, is a crime." And in this essay they mention Jose Watanabe and how most of his work is untranslated from Spanish to English. And I'm not sure if it's been translated to other languages aside from English, but yeah, it is a scarcity, and like I said, I always want to see Latin America represented in its fullness, and yes, there are Asian people within Latin America. There are prominent figures like Jose Watanabe that no one talks about. It's not just Garcia Marquez and Borges and Bolaño. There are diverse people within Latin America. Alrighty, so my June selection is Salón de Belleza by Mario Bellatin, and he is a Mexican and Peruvian writer. He was born in Mexico, his parents are Peruvian, and he sort of spent time between countries, but I think he is known as a Mexican writer. Beauty Salon is what the English title would be, and this one is available in English in case anyone wants to actually follow along in this TBR. From what I've read online about the summary, because I have not actually started this book, this is a novella that is set in a world where a plague has befallen this big city. The only person to open the doors to the survivors of this plague is the owner of a beauty salon, and it seems like he may have nefarious intentions. From what I've seen of the summary, it says that that beauty salon becomes a medieval death chamber. So I'm expecting a lot of grotesque scenes. Apparently Bellatin is known for his experimental and disturbing subject matter and style, as well as his inclusion of disability and non-heteronormative sexual identities within his stories. So I'm expecting really great things. I think the New Yorker said that this was a portrait of body and society in decay. Very fitting of the post-pandemic world, I think. Although I guess it's not really post-pandemic since we're still technically in a pandemic. But yeah, very fitting, and Bellatin is a really admired author within Latin America, so very, very excited for this one. The next book, which is my July pick, is Los Jardines de Salomón by Liliana Lara, and she is from Venezuela. And so yeah, this is a short story collection. This is a mix between fiction and nonfiction. It talks about love and nostalgia. It's very honest, it's very funny, it speaks to the futility of memory. So yeah, all of these themes seem like something that I would really enjoy. So yeah, that is my July pick. And then the other book that I will be splitting between 2 months, in this case August and September, is this one by Rigoberta Menchú, edited by Elizabeth Burgos. It is called Me llamo Rigoberta Menchú y así me nació la conciencia. And this is from Guatemala. And Menchú was a famous indigenous activist and winner of the, I think, 1992 Nobel Peace Prize. And she was of Quiche origin. This book was told as a series of interviews because Menchú was not totally confident in her written Spanish. So Elizabeth is the one who conducted the interviews, and then she compiled all of Menchú's words and testimony into what we have now. In this book, Menchu talks about how she taught herself Castellano, how she was raised, all the trauma that she experienced living through the Civil War, how the government then and to this day mistreats people of indigenous origins. And yeah, it just goes through a very personal account of her life. This actually was met with a lot of controversy because apparently some people thought that some of the events that she mentioned were false, that she made up that she had a brother or that he died in some way. But Menchu asserted that this was more of a testimony beyond herself. It was more for her community. She was speaking for everyone, so maybe some things didn't happen to her, but she knows that they did happen to other people. So yeah, I feel like there's always controversy when it comes to testimonial type books, but I think it's still very important to read more from indigenous peoples, and yeah, I'm very excited to read this too. The next book pick for October is El Beso de la Mujer Araña by Manuel Puig. And this is from Argentina. There's a famous movie that, adapted this work onto the screen. And it's fitting because a lot of this book talks about the power of film as escapism. This is about Molina and Valentin, who are two men stuck in an Argentine prison, and the friendship that forms between them. This is known for its non-traditional narrative style and voice. There is a lot of dialogue and very little markers for who is speaking that dialogue. I suppose the more you read, the more you become accustomed to the different voices of each character. So I think it becomes easier as you read. But yeah, it's experimental, it's a bit metafictional, a bit existential. So yeah, it sounds like a riot, and I think it would be a good excuse to finally see that movie adaptation too. The November pick is called Un Día en la Vida by Manio Argueta. He is a writer from El Salvador. This is told entirely from the perspective of the women of the Guardado family, and it goes through, as the title would suggest, a day in their lives. They are a peasant family, they are living in poverty, and the book looks at how they interact with the church and the state. It really challenges and confronts the idea that people who live in poverty often are taught through religion that, their suffering in this life is okay because in the next life they will be happy. So this book tries to challenge that a little bit by saying that no, actually they deserve happiness in this life. And yeah, it talks about government exploitation and oversight into these more impoverished communities within El Salvador. It talks about the Civil War, and the novel is known for its lyricism and its vernacular style. So this just sounds like it's going to be maybe one of my favorites of the year. I don't know. It's a while before I get to start reading this, but it just sounds really fantastic. And finally, the December pick, I have not forgotten you, Brazil. I picked Lavura arcaica by Hadun Nassar, or Ancient Tillage by Raduan Nassar. I've already pretty much mentioned that this is from Brazil. Nassar is a beloved Brazilian author, and this edition, published by New Directions, is translated by K.C.S. Sotolino. And I'm just going to read the summary in the back because I think it does a really, really good job of getting us excited for what's within. So this is the summary. For Andre, a young man growing up on a farm in Brazil, life consists of the earth, the wheat, the bread, our table, and our family. He loves the land, fears his austere, pious father, who preaches from the head of the table as if from a pulpit, and loathes himself as he begins to harbor shameful feelings for his sister Anna. Lyrical and sensual, written with biblical intensity, this classic Brazilian coming-of-age novel follows Andre's tormented path. He falls into the comforting embrace of liquor as, in his psychological and sexual awakening, he must choose between body and soul, obligation, and freedom. Sounds like another favorite, probably. Yeah, I am just so excited to finally be reading more Brazilian literature, and to end the year with this one. I foresee that I will be reading more of Nestor's work. And if it wasn't obvious, he is Brazilian of Lebanese descent. There are a lot of immigrants from the Middle East that have migrated across Latin America and have a strong presence within Latin America. So, very happy to include at least a little bit of that representation in this year's TBR. And yes, this is my TBR for the year. Yeah, I'm so excited to see what this year offers me, what these books can teach me, how I might be inspired by learning more about my own identity. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. Once again, please, if you have any other recommendations from any Latin American countries, please comment down below. Let me know. While these are the ones that I'm doing for my official TBR, that does not mean that I won't be reading other Latin American books aside from these within the year. So just because I'm reading these, it doesn't mean like, okay, well, I've ticked off my Latin American quota for the year. I don't have to read like any other Latin American authors for the year. No, not at all. I've already bought just 2 more Latin American books within the past week, so I'm always trying to read and learn some more. So yeah, thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, and please comment down below. I really appreciate the views that I get. I know it's not much as of today, but thank you so much for joining me today and just hearing me ramble on about this very special project for me. And yeah, I would love to hear what Latin American books you've read or are reading or plan to read. If maybe you want to join making your own, curating your own TBR for yourself this year. So yeah, thank you so much again for watching, and have a lovely day, and see you next time. Bye.